Welcome, everybody. I am Dr. Mike Headlee, and with me is Dr. Gordon Fimreite. Welcome, Dr. Gordy.
Hey, Dr. Mike, and welcome everybody to the Health Angle podcast. This episode is about clothing. Is there hidden toxicities and chemicals that are harming your health without you knowing? This episode, we're going to talk all about it. So welcome to this episode of the Health Angle podcast.
Dr. Gordy, I'm going to have 3 points. My 3 points are going to be how clothes are polluting the food supply, dry cleaning chemicals found to harm brain cells and raise Parkinson's risk and also linked to liver damage. And then I'm going to talk about what actually happens to your donated clothes. I'm going to kick off with how clothes are polluting the food supply. The clothes we wear and wash on a daily basis contribute to environmental pollution. And I had some conversations with some patients today, and it was pretty interesting. Some were really keen to it, and some like, wow, I never thought of it. So there's microfibers in particular pose a serious threat to marine life. They migrate into fields and onto our plates even. So synthetic microfibers make up 85% of shoreline debris worldwide.
Wow.
They've been found in both table salt and fish sold for human consumption. So these microscopic plastic fibers soak up toxins like a sponge, concentrating PCBs, pesticides, and oil, and even higher amounts as you move up the food chain. And so we'll talk a little bit, you mentioned about what's in the clothes that are polluting the food supply, so that it's pretty interesting. And then the last one, I'll talk about what actually happens to your donated clothes. Or are we donating toxins and pollutants, and what happens to those? So it's a really interesting topic.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You know, I'm going to focus in on, I got 4 points as well. And I want to focus in on like, well, what are we talking about? Chemicals on clothing that we wear, and that can be bad for us? Yes. And unfortunately, our skin is supposed to be a barrier to the clothes that you wear. But unfortunately, your skin absorbs chemicals and toxicities. And we're finding more and more chemicals that are put in these clothes that our skin is actually absorbing. And everything from dyes to finishes to even synthetic treatments, et cetera, can be absorbed from the chemical into the body. So you wouldn't take that individual chemical and rub it on your skin. We all know that's not good for you. But if you're in clothes and it's actually rubbing against you or you're sweating, that stuff can be absorbed right into the body, and it can manifest very, very easily. So my second point is just real quick here. Many clothes are treated with these toxic chemicals, and they include formaldehyde, and this is used to prevent wrinkles in the actual clothes. Then you've got azo dyes, and this can break down and actually cause cancer. So it's a carcinogen. And then you have an acronym, which is PFAS. And these are the forever chemicals. And you can include the microplastics, Dr. Mike, that you were talking about. And that stuff, you just can't get rid of it. It's like everywhere. These forever chemicals, these are basically stain resistant and water resistant, those type of products for your clothing. Those are bad. And then the last one here is flame retardants. These are linked to really hormonal disruption. Gosh, I hate to say it, but anything that makes the clothes cheaper, brighter, or more durable, unfortunately, it can have a negative consequence to our health. The good news is, Mike, we're going to talk about some healthy alternatives. At least that's in my section at the end of this. So back to you.
Yeah, isn't that it's an important topic. Like a lot of the things we talk about, Dr. Gordy, from just simple water, and toothpaste and oral health and all the other stuff we talk about are pretty simple topics. But any one of them are really, really important. If you just blow off your clothes and just put any wrinkle-free, you don't look at labels or you don't look at what's in the fibers, it seems innocent. But then you combine that with our laundry detergent and all of our soaps and our shampoos and toothpaste, it gets to be a lot of toxic burden for the body.
Yeah, no doubt. And I keep saying this, I feel like almost every other episode, it's hard to be healthy in our society because there's so many things in so many different directions. All we can do is our best, but at least if you become conscious, change out the toothpaste, like you said, and your hair products that you wash your hair with, and just start doing the basics over time, that can make a big difference, I believe.
I agree with you too, Dr. Gordon. What do you think about just taking a deep breath and relaxing and not getting overwhelmed and say, now I have to go through every label on my closet and look at all my, nah, just take a deep breath, just do your best, listen to what we have to say, make small little incremental changes over time. Don't have to go throw all of your clothes out today and spend $10,000 tomorrow on clothes, but it is important. Dry cleaning chemical found to harm brain cells and raise Parkinson's risk. In my town, we have one dry cleaner, and I don't feel like I'm super cheap by not going there a lot, but it's over $6 a shirt to get it dry cleaned. So
Hmm.
for that $6, I get a whole host of toxins underneath that plastic layer that they put over my shirt. So I'm paying, I think, a pretty big premium because I can wash my clothes and iron it at home a lot healthier.
Hmm.
So, a study of more than 1.3 million Americans found that people living in areas with high TCE, it's called trichloroethylene, levels had a 10% greater risk of Parkinson's disease than those in cleaner regions. So, this TCE is a solvent once used in dry cleaning and degreasing. It persists in the air, but it also gets in the soil and groundwater, and it stays there for decades, exposing people through contaminated water and indoor air, even far from industrial sites. So I asked some people today if they use the dry cleaner, and if they do, because of dresses and or suits, or occasionally and get stains out, they were adamant. This one person was adamant about taking the dry cleaning out of the plastic bag and letting it, kind of vaporize in a garage or outside in fresh air instead of just putting a half a dozen shirts in the closet and let that off gas on all your clothes. And so I thought that was a really good strategy, but I don't use the dry cleaner a lot to do that. But if you do, I think that's a really good strategy. So
Hmm.
this laboratory research revealed that TCE damages dopamine-producing neurons, disrupting mitochondrial energy production. That wrecks all of our cells, and we talked about a lot of other episodes on how to optimize your mitochondria or cellular energy. And then it just causes toxic protein buildup, that like those seen in Parkinson's patients. And that's just, again, something innocent that I just need my suit cleaned. I just need a few shirts that have some stains on them. Just bring them to the dry cleaner, whether it's $1 or $6. That's not the point. Point is, it works to get stains out and to make them look really good because there's a lot of chemicals in them, even if you're using natural fibers.
You were talking a little bit about hormone disruption. This is a real concern with some of these products that they use. And some of the textile chemicals are endocrine disruptors, meaning they can interfere with the hormones and they can be linked to fertility issues, which is it's a huge problem. A thyroid problem is another big problem. And then early puberty, of course, and then of course, mood and metabolic changes. There are so many people with depression, anxiety, but nobody would ever look at the clothes for any of these four conditions I just mentioned, which is interesting because it would be something to really examine. And this matters especially if you're dealing with new clothing that aren't good for you, for babies, kids, and pregnant women, because these are the most vulnerable as far as coming to the hormonal system. And then I want to just go into my fourth point real quick before I get into some solutions. Cheap, fast produced clothing, also known as fast fashion. This basically equates to a lot of chemical exposure. So it uses lower quality synthetic fibers, heavier chemical treatments. It skips proper washing before the sale of the actual item that you pick out in the store. And examples is if you open up a box of your clothes that you've just ordered from Amazon or wherever, and you smell chemical type of smell, well, this is a good indication that it's toxic. Those are chemicals. It's not good for you. When I thought of that, my wife and I have been looking for homes lately, and we've been walking to a couple places, and it's supposed to be like smelling good. And I know they're plugging toxicities into the wall, some of those scents that they use. And when I'm smelling that stuff, I'm thinking, this might have a okay smell to it, but I know in the back of my head, like, this is no way, it's not good for you. So it's the same concept with these clothes, and you open the box, boom, you just get a litter full, which is unfortunate. So my next points, Mike, after I hear what you have to say, is I'm gonna just talk about tips that you can avoid these toxicities and chemicals in your clothing.
Yeah, that's interesting with those smell. There's a documentary on YouTube that just talks about a father who bought his two girls some pajamas online, and he got them home, and one started breaking out and breathing troubles and stuff because of the fragrance on there. And
Wow.
so he called the company, and they go, I don't know. So he found tried to get a hold of the manufacturer, and says, it says natural fragrance. I need to know what that fragrance is. My daughter's freaking out over it and has a rash and breathing, and it documented, it just was really, really hard to get to the source, talking to the CEO of the company. And no, the industry says it's healthy, so we don't really know what's in it. And it was like, why do they have to put fragrance in kids' pajamas? Like, and then why? Anyway, the
Wow.
guy bought them because they were pajamas, not because they smelled a certain way. And they can be
Mhm.
very poisonous. And we just have to really have a radar up on all levels. So what actually happens to your donated clothes? Well, here's the answer. Americans buy 500% more clothing today than they did in the 1980s.
Wow.
I was well alive in the 1980s. So the so-called fast fashion, as you mentioned, has become so common, it's not unusual for people to throw away clothes worn only once or twice.
Hmm.
So 12.8 million tons of textiles were sent to landfills, and that's more than 7% of the total US landfill waste in the last
Wow.
several years. So, as much as 90% of clothing donations to charitable organizations end up with textile recyclers. So, what's a textile recycler? They make carpet out of those. So, they grind it up. They grind up textiles kind of like they grind up parts of animals and throw them in a tube called a hot dog, unless it's all beef. And so a lot of rugs and carpets and other things in our homes can be ground up chemical clothing that looks pretty decent on the other end, because hot dogs might be appealing to some people, but read the label. So part of the solution is buying less and making healthier purchase decisions. And so most of our clothes end up in landfills, and if they're toxic and they're chemicals and the microplastics, I said earlier, stuff winding up in our oceans that gets into our food supply. And it's just, what happens to your clothes? Do you think, oh, I'll just drop them off at Goodwill? That helps people out. They can buy used clothes at a really discount, and that's not a
Mhm.
bad thing if you're donating healthy clothes. And I'm confident you're going to get into some quality fabrics of clothes. But they say, like in Goodwill, they 90% of them get shipped to these recyclers,
Wow.
and to the landfill and or these recyclers. So they aren't using 100% of our donations. So they have to pay to ship it and or get rid of it or bring it to landfill. And so that could be costly in itself versus just giving it away, donating, or having a garage sale. So African textile industries suffer due to the glut of cheap cast-offs from our country.
Wow.
And I feel bad. So now we're polluting other countries with our poisonous, not just food and chemicals and shampoos, like you said, and the Yucca app stuff, maybe they have to have these barcodes on clothes now, so then we can have the Yuka app
Yeah.
and scan them, you know? Now,
Yeah.
I wonder if there is a clothing app that kind of scans clothes to tell us if there's hidden chemicals in there. That might be a really good idea for those app aware and app creators out there. So what's maybe at the root, Dr. Gordy, is overconsumption, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and
I just thought back, in the 80s, people used to make clothes. You go to the fabric store, you make clothes, and even the 70s, the same thing. Whole different competitive arena for clothes. Now, I mean, they make everything for everything, everything. I mean, it's so competitive, and they're using all the technology. But that's the problem too, is there's no health standards. I know people don't think of health clothing. What? There might be a mind blank there, but there definitely needs to be something, some administrative board, government board, or something to overlook, because some of the stuff that's coming out is, I don't think it's bad news. It's unfortunately, and most doctors, when they're doing the exam and you have a thyroid problem or you have some mental anxiety or depression, they're not looking at your clothes. And who knows, maybe the spandex that these people are working out in, and they're sweating in, that could be a very positive source. And they're getting new spandexes because they're rolling through these clothes because they're working out and they want to look good. Complicated, right, Mike? Just a
it
little
is.
complicated.
It is. It just makes you think, just do some thinking. Um,
Yeah,
I follow Dr. Mercola, so Mercola.com, you can go on his site and buy almost anything, from water filters to air filters. He sells clothes, actually,
yeah,
mostly like t-shirts and shorts and leggings and different, not fashionable. I
yeah.
guess you could wear it every day, you know. Didn't Steve Jobs, didn't he wear a black t-shirt all the time, And so, I mean, maybe you could just get the same t-shirts from Dr. Mercola, but they're organic cotton. And so that's one thing. And then what I was just thinking of earlier too, Dr. Gordy, is there's a lot of recovery type clothing now, whether it's socks or shirts that have these graphene oxides and, the copper fit type clothing that you see and hear about. And,
Hmm.
I think a lot of that is proven to reduce inflammation if you wear it overnight, or copper socks or shoes or hats or whatever. But then again, the other part of it too is the technology in there that just say it's using natural minerals and different things to help circulation and inflammation. But is the material they use healthy that we're wearing overnight, or the athletes are wearing and things like that. So it might be positive in one aspect, but it might be chemicalized and kind of toxic for the skin in other
Hmm.
areas. So maybe
Yeah.
just have a conversation and dive deep do some research into what clothing you're wearing.
That's great. Great point, Mike. I want to just cover on some tips that people can do to avoid these chemicals in their clothing. But before I do that, Dr. Mike, this is a little bit unrelated to the clothes in our episode today, but I saw the article today and I can't help but to mention it. The 49ers, the football team, San Francisco 49ers, they've been having a real problem with players becoming injured, and they're trying to figure out, why are we having more injuries than usual. Well, one of the things they're exploring is there's a substation. A substation is where all the city electronic circuitry comes in. They call it a substation, and it's near their practice facility. So they're actually going to look at electromagnetic forces that may be influencing these players, making their tissues weaker and potentially adding to the risk factor as far as their injury. I found that kind of an interesting article today. They're just exploring it now because of all the injuries that they sustain there, which they think is a little bit higher than usual. Interesting, huh,
It,
Mike?
it is really, Dr. Gordy, real quick to comment on that. I read that article or saw it on ESPN.com, actually. So that's major network. And when I'm on my exercise bike at night or treadmill, I've been I turned on the Netflix series Receiver. So it talks about six wide receivers. I think there's 8 episodes. So I go 20, 30 minutes at a time, and kind of positive, kind of interesting to watch, instead of just some random shows and stuff. But I was interested. There's 49ers in there as well on the episode. And I was kind of shocked actually with all six receivers because it showed all of them getting injured over the last year or so. And it was kind of interesting. Of course, they see chiropractors. Of course, they get massage therapy and physical therapy, but they need to listen to our podcast. So if anyone knows the receivers in the receiver documentary, have them listen to our podcast because that could hopefully prevent some injuries and optimize their performance and recovery and help them because Justin Jefferson, I'm the Minnesota Viking fan, he showed
True.
his cupboard jammed with sugary treats. He admits, I'll change my diet when I'm a little older, but I can get away. He eats massive amounts of sugar and
Wow.
they don't have 100%. You don't need to be 100%, but they don't have really great parts of their lifestyle. And I
Mhm.
think that contributes as well. Listen to our podcast on sugar because, gosh, I was shocked because he's an elite athlete and he's one of the best. And then those
Yeah.
other two 49er guys in there and it showed their other lifestyles. So you combine that with EMFs, it's some topics that people aren't ignoring anymore. So great.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, just want to reiterate that the particular one on podcast that we did on electromagnetic frequencies or waves. Check that out because that dives into it very deeply. Okay, real quick, Dr. Mike. These are the fibers or the type of natural fibers that you should be looking for: organic cottons, linens, hemp, wool, and silk. Now, try to avoid these. I know it's hard, but all you can do is your best. Polyester, nylon, acrylic, and spandex, especially in like the underwear garments. Horrible. So the rule of thumb, it's basically plastics. So treat it like plastics, that last group that I just read. Second thing is they are coming up with some certification as far as whether the particular clothing is healthy. So there is some type of labeling being done. So I think it's in its infancy. And then the other thing is be conscious of performance claims. So for example, if the product says wrinkle free or stain resistant, water repellent, odor blocking, or flame resistant, these might be a problem because that's where a lot of the chemicals are coming from, particularly if you're wearing that type for underwear, bras, socks, sleepwear, or workout clothes in which you sweat. And that's where a lot of your skin absorbs. So those are keys. So the bottom line, here's what you got to do. My last point, Dr. Mike: wash new clothes before wearing. I think most people do that. Choosing natural fibers when possible, and then being mindful of underwear, workout gear, and sleepwear, where they're basically worn in highest concentration. So that's my section, Dr. Mike.
I just had 5 quick ways to detoxify your wardrobe. Some simple practical steps, real quick here. Avoid dry cleaning, as we talked about earlier. Use natural laundry detergents. A lot of people are making that. I mean, I live in a smaller community and stuff, and a lot of people have gardens and go to farmers markets and co-ops. So use natural laundry detergents. A lot of recipes online you can find. Wash new clothes before wearing, like Dr. Gordy said. Choose undyed or plant-dyed fabrics. My wife dyes wool so people can knit and make projects with dyed wool from natural elements and plants and flowers and things like that. And then just prioritize loose, breathable fits. And, then that will help detoxify your wardrobe. So, as I like to end all of our podcasts, this is kind of a thinking one here. Maybe it's not a topic that you talk to with coworkers or family members about all the time. So, what's your number one takeaway from our podcast that you can share with a loved one and or a coworker about clothing? Because we all compliment, hey, I like your sweater, I like your new jeans, and geez, is that a new hat? Yeah, whatever. So maybe have a conversation about people's clothes or your clothes and read labels. What's your number one action step you're going to take based on what Dr. Gordy and I talked about today? So that's my final two questions.
Awesome, Mike. Thanks, everybody, for joining us here at the Health Angle Podcast. Next week, we'll have a different subject, a different health subject, and each week we do these. And please subscribe. Please like our content. Hit that notification button. And then until next week, we will see you right here at the Health Angle Podcast.
Thank you for joining us on the Health Angle Podcast. Please subscribe to our channel and catch us for our next episode.